Hello, and welcome to this episode of Better Life with Drew Jackson. Long before communication evolved to the speed of emails, texting, Zoom calls, FaceTime, and social media, people communicated with their loved ones through writing letters. And I hear some of you saying, yes, but we've come a long way. Well, have we really? We're about to get into that and examine it right now.
Better Life with Drew Jackson is a podcast that exposes some of the underlying life issues that can hinder progress and furnish insight into how we can all move forward in spite of challenges, enjoy and appreciate success at any level, and have more meaningful relationships. This is Better Life with Drew Jackson.
Not too far in the distant past, people from all over the world, whether highly educated or inexperienced with proper word usage, took time from their busy schedules to sit down and attempt to pen their most intimate feelings on paper. In many instances, these letters contained the things they hoped to achieve, the challenges they faced, the aspirations they dreamed of, and even the disappointments they experienced when it seemed their world had come apart. All of these emotions they learned to express by writing letters to those closest to them. In present day, however, the evolution of emails, texts, and modern ways of communications have apparently all but taken the place of letter writing. The question remains, however, have we somehow diminished the detail and heartfelt expression in communication just to cut to the chase? Now, to be fair, there is a lot to be said about the convenience of shooting a quick text or email when we're in a hurry, or even using emojis to express the emotion we are seeking to convey if there isn't enough time to have meaningful conversation. The potential danger, however, is that attempting to only get to the bottom line, we can also sabotage the one thing that breeds human understanding and tolerance, which is meaningful conversation. I've thought about this a lot and would like to look at just a few reasons why we should consider reintroducing writing letters, if only as a hobby, as a way to improve real intimacy in our communication. So let's look at a few. Number one is intimacy. If you've ever received letters from family members, acquaintances, or even lovers, there is an intimate connection or bond that is formed. We can recognize their handwriting or the part of the country or world where they reside, or even smell their perfumed stationery. In short, we connect though they're not physically present. I've heard of people using containers such as shoeboxes to organize their letter collections from loved ones from days gone by. Letters are sometimes referred to as portraits on paper because they create a written picture of the ones with whom we are connecting. We touch the paper they write on. We find private places to read without being disturbed, and we sometimes hold on to one letter, reading it over and over again until a new one arrives, especially where love is concerned. Let's look at another reason. Number two is preservation of voice. If you've ever read a good biography that contained letters or an epistolary, you may notice that though you're not acquainted with the person, you feel a connection to their life experiences, decisions, their highs and lows, and even can empathize with their choices made, whether they are a contemporary or historical figure from the past. What bridges this connection lies beyond the pages. It is a connection of soul, the mind, the will, the intent, and the intellect of the one that we're reading about, or better yet, discovering. In other words, their voice is preserved and we get to feel the life they lived. Let's look at number three. Number three is self-discovery. If you can still picture it, think about a letter that you've written. It may have been for a grammar class in school, or from a vacation spot, or maybe your home. Do you remember how you found a place where you could sit down and think about what you wanted to say? The contemporary counterparts to letter writing don't usually afford us that luxury in quite the same way. We are mostly concerned about one or more points we need to address rather than intimate details. But when we are writing to someone, we think about our thoughts to the person to which we are writing and try to convey and compose the words as if we were sitting in their presence. This is a vastly fading tool of self-discovery because we can't send a heart or smiley face or angry emoji to show our emotions. This forces us to search and discover what we truly feel and not just to react. We may sit down to write in anger, but as we ponder, we may discover rather than blowing someone off in anger, compassion and desire to understand begins to arise. This favors introspection into one's own thoughts and true purpose in the communication. Let's move on to number four. Number four is romance. There are so many other advantages that I'm thinking of, but for the sake of time, I had to get this one in. The romantic desire that writing letters create has a long history of its own. We could talk about long-distance relationships where writing and expecting letters were the lifeline that led to marriage and family or preserved relationships through arduous and difficult times. You know, I'm particularly a fan of reading the letters from the loves of soldiers at war or couples that have been separated by difficult circumstances. The depth that surfaces when reading them seems a little more passionate. This could be due to not knowing if they would see one another again, so the reality and fervency of clinging to the present seems to be more apparent. In a world where hookup culture has all but taken the place of discovering and cherishing true love, who knows? Maybe a return to letter writing could be the impetus for reintroducing human value again in romance. As previously stated, writing a letter to someone you love costs you time, energy, and money in some instances, depending on where your loved one may be. Again, we have to connect with our true feelings about our love, about who we really are, and how to properly respond if we want our relationships to grow. In closing, I'd like you to hear two excerpts from two famous couples of past history. The first is from Abigail Adams to her husband John Adams, the second president of the United States. Abigail to John Adams, December 1782, and I quote, "I look back to the early days of our acquaintance and friendship as to the days of love and innocence. And with an undescribable pleasure, I have seen near a score of years roll over our heads with an affection heightened and improved by time. Nor have the dreary years of absence in the smallest degree effaced from my mind the dear untitled man to whom I gave my heart." Close quote. The second is from Dr. Martin Luther King to Coretta Scott King around the mid to late 1950s, and I quote, "Darling, I miss you so much, in fact, much too much for my own good. I never realized that you were such an intimate part of my life. My life without you is like a year without a springtime, which comes to give illumination and heat to the atmosphere, which has been saturated by the dark, cold breeze of winter." Close quote. Can you hear the longing, the need to be together, and even the frustration in getting through difficult times come out? They are literally painting a portrait with words for all who read them to see, and exploring another level of intimacy within and with each other in hopes of building stepping stones and a bridge, rather than erecting obstructions to life by only using curt and disjointed expressions. This is truly a lost art that we do well to revive. Well, that's it for this episode, and thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe and write more letters. Until the next time, keep reaching for better life, and we'll see you then.
To keep up with all things Drew, go to www.drewjackson.com or follow on Instagram @DrewJackson. Join us next time on Better Life with Drew Jackson.